In fact, I'm not sure if you guys were made aware, but the third season of the Netflix series, which follows various athletes in the NFL. First season was NFL quarterback, then followed by NFL receiver. Season 3 is out. This time it is covering 3 specific quarterbacks: Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, and obviously Joe Burrow. Now, I feel that we ended up getting quite a bit of answers regarding the relationship between Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, and the Cincinnati Bengals organization. And it's tough to draw a conclusion because, for the most part, Joe Burrow is relatively reserved when it comes into talking to the media. He's not a player that is typically going to go on a Twitter rant of how frustrated he is. But last season, he agreed to be on this show where his every move was documented. He was on the hot mic from training camp all the way until the Cincinnati Bengals had to call it a season due to yet another disappointing performance. And this clip, I'm not going to play it because I don't want to risk getting demonetized on today's channel. But although that there was a win, they did pull off a win against the Tennessee Titans. A little closer than we would have liked it to be, especially for a team that was in the top 3 for the 2025 NFL draft. Joe was out there spewing profanities due to his frustration with the embarrassing performance. It started off on this clip where he stormed off of the sideline saying, "What the F? We're making all of these different mental mistakes." He pointed out that one of his offensive linemen was offsides 6 or 7 times. Zach Taylor attempted to sit back and spew this nonsense, suggesting, hey, it's all right. You did a great job on that drive. And Joe looked him dead in the eye, cut him off, and said, "That was fucking embarrassing." Please pardon my French. I am just directly quoting what I heard from this clip. I highly recommend you check it out. It's at C-Box Sports. I'm sure you've seen the clip already. But look, I got to tell you, I think this episode, this series on Netflix is really going to be spelling out exactly where the relationship between Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are truly going, or is truly going. Now, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. His name is Jesse. He is a 49ers contributor on Roundtable Sports, and he brought this up. And the more and more that I started to think about it, it was solidified the second that I saw this clip going viral on social media. He said, "Dan, I think Joe Burrow, if Cincinnati follows the same trajectory, the same path that they did in 2024, Joe Burrow is going to request a trade. He is going to have enough." And look at it. We can look at the Cincinnati Bengals organization, and as much as we love to watch them light it up on the offense, 40, 50 point plus offense type game, eventually, I feel like Joe Burrow is going to look into the mirror one day and say, am I about to be the next Carson Palmer? Is this organization going to drag me down? Is this organization going to continue to ignore perhaps 2 of the most important units that an NFL roster needs to prioritize, an offensive line and then ultimately a defense? I got to tell you, I promise you that's going through his mind. For anybody that's trying to look me in the eye and say, no, he's happy in Cincinnati, he's going to ride it out through the remainder of his career, not unless you start seeing some success over there. Look, it is a difficult pill to swallow for Cincinnati Bengals fans / for Joe Burrow. But one thing I would always like to point out to everybody, and I say this for my beloved team, the Buffalo Bills, these athletes owe absolutely nothing to these organizations. These athletes look at these NFL organizations as a paycheck, as their job, as their day-to-day. They have no loyalty. If, for example, you are upset with your current working environment, eventually, folks, you are going to look for greener pastures. Whether or not the trigger point is a better culture or the trigger point is a higher salary, make no mistake, these athletes, I do not care who we are talking about. If things do not go well, and this is regularly consistent, eventually somebody is going to have enough. And I really think that this Joe Burrow relationship with Cincinnati, especially if they follow the same suit, where yet again their defense ends up laying an egg and sells for the offense that is putting up a historic amount of points on a game-by-game basis, and say that the offensive line continues to be less than disciplined and Joe spends a lot of time on his ass, he's going to look at cautionary tales of Andrew Luck having to retire too soon. He's going to look at cautionary tales of quarterbacks that spent way too much time on an organization that clearly was not on the same page. So watch this clip, folks. Watch this clip and let me know your thoughts.